Okay, we are recording and hello. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Shelly and I am here with my good friend Cami or Camden. What do you prefer?
I prefer Cami.
You do prefer Cami? Okay.
Mm.
Who is well, I'm going to let them tell you about who they are and what they do a little bit. I am just going to say Cami is one of the most genius, extraordinary, amazing, magnificent people that I know. And Cami, well, I wanted to introduce Cami in case anybody's interested in some of the things that they do, and I'm sure you will be after you talk to them. So, Cami, just go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do, and I might be asking you questions.
That's fine.
Okay.
I actually prefer questions, but I will just riff about myself, which is one of the hardest things anyone can do, I think. So I'm Cami, and I identify as a witch, and that's really what I've built my life around, my life and my practice. And so uh, like I still do some body work. That's where I met Shelly, was at NMSNT when I went through the program. And I still do some body work, but not very much. I usually do more energy work and I do charm work for people, which is where like I'll build like a little charm or a spell for them. I do a lot of energetic clearings using witchcraft and occult ritual practice. Um, and then I guess mostly what I've been doing recently is writing. So I just published a book in November of last year called Ars Granorum, The 16 Arts of Witchcraft. It's kind of like a beginner to intermediate book on witchcraft and how to deepen your relationship to your practice. It's not really a how-to, it's more of a how-to witch. It's more of a how to build community when it comes to the world of spirit.
Hmm.
Which I think is a major part of witchcraft that goes unheeded in a lot of circles, is that we do deal with a lot of spirits. And so how do you make those relationships and build them so that they are beneficial for both of you? And then I just finished another book that I'm looking into getting published, which is a how-to manual on Popit Magic and the use of magical figures.
Puppets? Like it.
Poppets. Well, not puppets, but poppets,
Okay.
which are like the more common phrase is voodoo doll.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but how to use them for like healing as well as harming, and how to use them for yourself, and
Healing as well as harming.
yeah, of course. Life is multi-layered. Sometimes you need a little blood on your claws. Um, and so I wrote this book, and it's a how-to on like what a poppet is, what sympathetic magic is, which is kind of like imitation, um, and it's based on the principle of as above, so below, as below, so above, like that kind of thing. Um, and then also I wrote a whole ritual on how to bring a doll to life in that book.
How to bring
So
it all to life. So you're like creating golems.
kind of,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
We
Okay.
call them spirit dolls. I did call them golems for a while, but it's a little. I'm not Jewish, so I feel a little awkward using that word. But a spirit doll is basically a doll that you bring to life and then give a spirit to, and it can go out and do things for you, like fetch items. Like maybe you can't find an herb or you can't find a book, and so you ask your spirit to find it for you, and then you find it like online somewhere for a good price, or a friend drops it off, or like they just open the probability for you to be able to find the thing you're looking for. Or you can send them out to do mischief, or you can send them out to heal people, or like there's all sorts of things you can do with a spirit doll. But that's like a major part of that book. And then a bunch of correspondences on color and body parts and how you would use them to heal or harm with pins and needles and stuff. It's a really cool book, in my opinion. My mom said it was a little on the dark side, but she loved
Your mom?
it. Yeah.
That's a little on the dark. Well, I mean, this is one of the things that I love about you is that you work with the dark and the light. And there's, you know, pretending that everything is all rainbows and unicorns and puppy dogs, we dishonor a whole other experience of what we're having in the world. And I I've never been on your bad side as far as I know, so I didn't even know that you taught things around harm. So I'm gonna stay on your good side.
And in my classes, I also teach about magical ethics, like why would you choose to harm, and like in what situations is that like a tenable choice, and what are the repercussions? Like, are there any, like that kind of thing. And then that goes into a lot of like the way that I view the spirit and the way that I view interactions with divinity in general. And I'm currently writing a third book about that because my view of spirituality is based in Hermetic Kabbalism, which
Mm.
I was taught as a kid from my grandpa. So
Yeah, we had that conversation. That's really interesting. All right, here's the deal. There's so many things that I would like that I want to talk to you about, and I really want to keep this under 30 minutes because I mean, right now the things that you're talking about is just it's just a tiny piece of who you are and what you do. Because like you didn't mention that. Well, all right, you have the Heart and Vine Apothecary, apothecary, um,
mm,
where and you also you make like magical talismans and you make other things. You're an amazing artist. You do tarot. Have you finished your tarot deck? You're creating a tarot deck as well.
I haven't finished it, and I'm actually transitioning into working with another artist, and so
Really?
it's going to be like a conglomerate kind of thing.
Oh,
But it's the artist that did the artwork for my first book. His name is Jeremy De La Rosa, and he does occult art, and he's like a ritualist. So
I love his art and in your book, the things that you
mhm.
posted there. And but I love your art too. I love your art.
I love my art too, but it's also like I want to finish. Like I want the deck to kind of be in alignment with the book I'm writing, because it's a book about Kabbalah and tarot and magic and like how it all correlates and how we can kind of take the Abrahamic stuff and move it into like more of a witchy Hecatean feel, and like mix that with the Chaldean oracles, and like there's all kinds of stuff going on in that book. But
Yeah,
it's
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 thick.
a lot of it's going to be real thick.
Oh, your new one because I mean the Ars. Tell me how you say the
Ars Granorum.
Ars Granorum. That's a big piece of work too.
Yeah.
Do you have a copy with you?
Um, not next to me.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, they can go to your website, Heart and Vine Apothecary. Why can
Yeah.
I not say that word today? I'll have it. I'll post it so that to get more information. And if they wanted to purchase, that's where they would do it too.
Yeah.
Or if you local, I know you have your books in a lot of local places in Albuquerque. Are they other places as well?
They're not in other shops. They're at Organic Books here, and at Old Town Herbal. So those are the two shops that are carrying it. And then I've been selling them pretty prolifically online.
Okay.
Uh, and that's where I've been doing the most of my sales.
Okay. So I have a question for you. With the witchcraft, and the way that you're focusing on it, if who would be interested in using these things, or what is it? What is the witchcraft? What is how do you use it? Let me ask that question.
Okay. So the way that I've come to use it is more for personal development. Like I have a somewhat daily practice, and like that's mainly visualizations and meditations, and uh, that kind of helps you to understand more deeply the way that you can interact with spirits, the way that you can interact with the spirit of plants, the way that you can interact with the spirit of things. Um, and so, really, the way that I teach witchcraft and the way that I use it is not necessarily to get what you want, although you can do that. It's more about transformation of self so that the relationships that you build take on a deeper, more mystical meaning. And so everything in your life becomes infused with this magic.
Mm.
And I personally think that everything, in a way, is magic. Like, I think that the basic, like, fluidic nature or like the lifeblood of all of the creation is magic. And so, like, when you're doing witchcraft, you're really tapping into that potential. Um, and so I feel like the people that would be interested are just people who are really wanting to understand themselves better, understand how they can work more sovereignly with more freedom and more choice in their life. Um, I don't really like the idea of like liberation necessarily, but I do like the idea of coming more into contact with like what someone like Aleister Crowley would have called your higher, like your highest will or your true will, so that you can then make more sovereign choices about your life and about who you are. Um, and that's really where I'm coming out with it, is I want to be more sovereign.
More sovereign. You know, I mean, I've known you for a while, and I don't think I've ever even asked you how you. I mean, I know that when I first met you, you were more into like the pagan traditions and stuff. But like how did you get into this? How did you get into witchcraft? How did this journey unfold for you?
So I was raised with magic. Both of my grandparents were occultists, um, particularly my grandfather. And they actually always told me to steer clear of witchcraft, which of course drove me closer to it. And my grandpa actually had this book. I think it was like a Time Life book, like one of those encyclopedia series, and like you get a book every month or whatever. But
Hmm.
he had one about witches, and I was super drawn to it. And in the book are all of these photos of like Stuart and Janet Farrar and Gerald Gardner and Doreen Valiente and like all those early people who were part of the Wiccan movement and Alexandrianism. And like those images just really drew me in. And so I started doing my own research into like witchy witchcraft and not so much like the new agey metaphysical stuff
Right.
uh, my grandparents were more into.
Hmm.
Uh, and so through like elementary and middle school, I was really like leaning into this witchy stuff, and I would go to the library and get all of the books on like ghost stories and folk tales and fairy tales and all that kind of thing, so I could learn more about like witches. Um, and then like in middle school, between middle school and high school, I got more into like Wicca,
Hmm.
but more eclectic, solitary stuff. I've never been initiated into a Wiccan organization, and so I don't have that background. And then when I went to college, I kind of left it all behind a little bit. Like I was moving through a different cycle of my life. Um, and I went into the hard sciences, and I have like a degree in biological anthropology, but I spent a lot of time in like the endocrinology lab and like studying bones of very ancient creatures and our ancestors and that kind of stuff. And I just got kind of disillusioned with the whole magic thing. And I actually thought that witchcraft was driving me crazy. And so I dropped it. And after dropping it, I realized that that was the thing that was actually keeping me sane.
Yep.
I just needed to have a different view of what my life could be. And so after college, I got back into it, and I found writers more like Sarah Ann Lawless and Jem McGarry, Shani Oates, and like people who are more into the traditional witchcraft, folkloric traditions, uh, and the path that kind of takes the dark into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not that Wicca doesn't, because it does, but it's different. Like where like I started reading these books that say like go out into the woods and meet the devil. Like go out into the woods and meet the fairies, like be in it, experience it. These are some methods on how to do it. Um, and it really changed my life. Like just taking the initiative and taking the authority that I can meet these creatures and make a relationship with them, and we can become like coworkers in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it really opened up a whole new world, and it's one that I have made my life revolve around and in and through and all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really how I came to it. It was just a lifetime of wanting to know more stuff.
That doesn't
And
does it. It doesn't
that
end.
it never ends. And
Right.
right now I'm working on more like ritual practice. Like I've been studying the old grimoires and the ritual tradition, and I've been learning more about like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and the way that they did stuff, and like getting into Crowley's works. And so I've gone from my own kind of thing built in metaphysics and the New Age to like Wiccan stuff to the darker strains of like folkloric and traditional witchcraft, and now I'm adding in Hermetic Kabbalah and ritual magic in a witchy traditional devil way.
All right. Have you seen that I don't know, it's out a while ago, and I was saw that Netflix, that documentary Hail Satan?
I haven't seen that actually. No.
It's good. It's good. I liked it because it kind of demystifies her. It reminds me of this conversation that we're talking about, because when you say Satan or the devil, there's that can, just because of our culture and how there's so many things in our culture that are like that are misunderstood. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Totally.
yeah, so like I love you for so many reasons. But one of the reasons that I love you is it's like you're helping to bring in this other missing piece, which is reclaiming something, which is helping all of us connect more to life, to heaven, to earth, to being here, to
Totally.
things that they're seen and unseen. Um,
Right.
yeah, yeah. And so
And
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, the way that a lot of like witchy type people think about the devil is not the way that Christianity thinks about the devil.
Right.
It's more like the horned one, Robin, Janacott, Old Hob. Like, there's all kinds of names for this creature, but we call him Black Tom, and I have a candle on my website devoted to Black Tom, who's a little goat with a broom, and I think it's very cute. Um, but like for us, the devil is more like the great initiator,
Hmm.
and so it's like a lower reflection of the principle of desire, and it's the desire that draws you along what is called the crooked or the midnight path. And it's also that desire that begins to open these doors to new ways of seeing the world and new reserves of power and new ways of seeing your, like, the way that you interplay with other people and the energies around you. Like, it's like the devil isn't something to fear. It does come through like the twilight and the night side of things, but that's not something to be denigrated. um, what's her name? Starhawk has this, I can't quote it exactly, but basically she says, beware of organizations that laud the light and deny the dark, because that causes only imbalance and you can't see the whole picture if you're denying the darkness. And so the devil is the thing that leads you into the dark forest, into the night, uh, into like the nightmare woods or whatever people say. But it's so that you can begin to integrate yourself completely and fully and recognize that like life and death aren't opposites. They're always the same thing.
Together.
And so they're always together.
Mhm.
And you can't separate the devil from like you can't separate the dark from the light without causing this toxic schism within yourself that doesn't allow for true healing and true freedom.
That is
And so,
what's happening in the world. I mean,
yeah,
hello, the
I
darkness.
absolutely agree.
Yeah, that's the chasm, the schism, the thing that you're talking about. That's we're all experiencing that now, and that is, I totally believe that's the repression of the dark energy, which is also associated with the feminine, not
Mhm.
related to gender. It's also associated with darker skinned people.
Totally. And
Yeah.
like a lot of the way that we think about like black magic, like that's based in racism and classism. Like
Hmm.
it's there is no separation between black and white magic. And
It's
I think that when you do that, when you separate the light from the dark, it also allows you to place like the dark on other groups so that then they become evil and they become the villain. And
yes.
that's not true. It's just a way to put blinders on, and then you don't really understand the world around you.
Yes, and then we're all split. I mean, there's part of us missing for sure. Oh yeah, I have to tell you this. You're going to find this interesting. I'm forgetting that we're recording this right now. So, this is what happens when I get on a conversation with you. I was talking to one of my friends who's going to school for programming, and she was saying that there's different levels of programming stuff that you get. Anyway, the level that she's going for is like a security level. I don't know all the terms for that, but she says, but then she can be a white hat, and the white hat people in the hacking world are like the good guys. And I said, well, who's the bad guys? And she said, it's the black hats. And I'm like, of course it is. So I mean, like
Yeah,
it's in everything, right? I mean, that language
totally.
is in everything. So
And
that,
actually,
yeah.
that's one way of categorizing witches and sorcerers too. Is that you are a white hat or a black
And white magic or black magic. And if you're
hat.
only in one of those, there's always that imbalance, or there's
Totally.
something missing. Yeah.
There's always something
So
missing.
you can't talk about healing without talking about harm.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
hmm
Very
And
cool.
the methods for healing are exactly the same methods for harming. It's just what's the intention. And I mean, I guess the intention is like that word is also a little bit diaphanous these days. So I guess what is your true will concerning the action?
Hmm.
Like what is your will and your purpose being directed into the right that you're performing? Is it to heal or is it to harm? It's probably going to be the exact same looking thing, but
Hmm.
what do you mean by it?
Hmm. Hmm. I just have to say, like, my mind just went back to even when I was talking about the good guys and bad guys. We don't have good girls and bad girls. We do, but that's a whole different thing. Even that is the division.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's another thing that I try to accomplish in my work is like the reunification of sex and gender because they're not binary opposites. Like and I mean even when you say like, well, there's like I know people in our city that just drive me fucking nuts. Um, but it's like, well, there's girls have a button and boys have a pole, and like, it's that kind of idea, and it doesn't take into account the huge array of intersex manifestations. Like,
Right.
there's a huge array of different genitalia that's none of my business or your business or anybody else's business except for the person who owns them. Like, there are people who are born with testicles and no penis.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And so like
Yeah.
that's not taken into account in that binary like biological sex. And like the idea of the masculine and the feminine has been so thrown out of proportion because they're pulled apart and separated. And that causes this intense tension when really they're the same thing, experiencing like basically the same, like it's all experiencing the same stuff.
It's a polarity.
Just like it's a polarity. Like what perspective do you have within that spectrum? And you're within that polarity, and it's going to shift. Like you're never fully this thing or fully that thing. It's always going to be somewhere sliding along here.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't know, the world as it is, I understand where it came from, but I also don't get why we're still here.
Because so people like you can come and help heal that chasm
I think yes.
or harm it. Whatever.
We're definitely doing some baneful workings for Trump.
It's because you know what, life is never it's never imbalanced. Like you said, we're always doing this regardless of what, and it applies to everything. Yeah, these metaphorical conversations. See, this is why we get in trouble and talk too long.
Right.
So the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is I know you've got like you're also an herbalist, and you also have run an apprenticeship program, and I know you've got that coming up in the spring, don't you?
Yes, that starts May 5th, and I'm teaching on Sundays and Wednesdays. And that is a class where I actually take you out into the Sandias and like various other places around. And we're going to like, I'll be taking people's temperatures when people wear masks and that kind of thing. So even now during the pandemic, it's fairly safe. But we actually go out and we walk the trails, we look at plants, we talk about botany, we talk about ecology, we talk about the uses of like invasive species. I really love talking about the use of invasive species rather than just the eradication of invasive species, which gets me into trouble on all of my native plant groups. And then like I teach, while we're out there, I teach like how to make medicine with these things and how to make charms and use them in spellcraft. And so really what the apprenticeship is, it's partially herbalism and partially wortcunning. And wortcunning is like the use of plants and plant spirits and plant associations for magic as well as medicine. Okay. And so this course not only talks about like the biological physiology of plants and how that can go into remedies. It also talks about the spirit of the plants, how to come into communion with those spirits, the folklore of the spirits, how people talk about it here, like around us, how to make better relationship with the spirits in the woods and up the mountain and down by the river, and like how do you talk to a river spirit and get it to teach you about the plants that are growing there, like that kind of stuff. It's a really in-depth class. And it goes from May through September.
Okay, and I know that for now, because we were talking about this earlier, for now that is an in-person thing, but you have some intention while you're doing these to start recording it so that you can offer this online at some point?
Yeah, I've got a few people who can't make it in person, and they're really interested in learning. A couple people who like are immunocompromised and can't make it out of their house, and then a couple people from out of town who are just interested in, you know, what's going on here on the mountain. And so I do want to film it and put it online somehow, so that there would be an online school kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, yeah.
And I'm also going to be doing that for the witchcraft classes too. So I'm starting the witchcraft workshops, the beginning witchcraft workshops.
Okay.
And that starts in March, March 14th, which it's still open for whoever wants to join. But I'm going to be making videos on like ritual practices and like how to cast a circle and that kind of thing. And that'll be on a private section of my YouTube channel so that only students can access it. Okay. But that way you can actually see it being done. And that's probably how I'll do the herbalism classes too, is create like a private YouTube so that people can access it and it's special and sacred. And
Okay. And so you've got three things coming up, or two things. You've got the
It's
herbalism,
more than two.
and okay, so you've got the beginner's magic,
Mhm.
and then you've got the herbalism thing. And so if somebody's interested in learning more about that, they can go to your website. Yeah.
You can just send me an email, or I have both of those things up where you can just buy it.
Okay. On your website. Is that the best place? Because I know you're on social media every.
Yeah, the best place is Heart and Vine. So it's HeartandVine apothecary.com.
Okay.
Um, and through that, you can access like any of my classes coming up, and you can access all of my products. And
Yeah.
that's where I do most of my businessy
Okay. Your businessy stuff.
stuff.
Magic-y stuff. You got your businessy stuff. You got your brainiac stuff. Because another thing that we didn't even talk about is like your scientific mind and your brilliance with Cami was like the world's, well, and still would be if school hadn't closed, but like the best anatomy teacher on anatomy and physiology and pathology teacher on the planet.
That's very sweet.
True. It's
I
true.
think that all of the teachers at NMSNT were just stellar, and I'm sad that it all went down the way that it did, but I'm so happy that I got to meet everyone there. Like it changed my life, and it was so fantastic.
Uh,
And I still like even now I have a job at Old Town Herbal, and I tell her you're my favorite boss, but you're my second favorite
it's
job.
kind of hard to find everything in one package, right?
Right? Yeah.
That's why we have to create it here within ourselves. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, well, we have been chatting for quite a while, so I'm going to bring this to a close. But I just really, really want to thank you for making the time to come on and chat with me. And yeah, we'll do this again. Yeah, like soon.
Yeah. I
Yes,
would
but I want to talk more about that your new book that you're working on.
I
Um,
would love to talk to you about Kabbalah and astrology.
yes,
Like
yes.
that would be so cool.
Yes, yeah. So we'll do, and well, there's a lot of things I want to talk to you about, because I'm sure that in our conversations we're somehow solving all the world's problems,
Of course. We've already solved like three of them today.
at least. All right. Well, I love you very much. You are going to be my first official video on my YouTube channel, which is called uh, it's astroenergetics or the energetics of astrology, which we didn't talk about that. But it's like, I mean, part of my deal is I love what other people are doing. I think it doesn't matter what the expression of, if it's witchcraft or if it's herbalism or if it's astrology or if it's body work or all of these things I believe are really super necessary right now. And I just know that some of the people who know me and don't know you need to know you. So
Well, I appreciate that.
yes, and you need to know them. Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Okay, so that's it for today. I am going to end this, and we will um, hold on. Okay, hold on.